Hi, friends. We at GLC would like to take a quick moment to thank you for watching our programs on this platform, and we'd like to ask you for a little favor. Would you please go beneath this video and click the subscribe button? Did you know that by simply subscribing to the GLC YouTube channel, you can help us financially support the programs on this platform? You'll need to be signed into YouTube beforehand. But if not, simply click the subscribe button and YouTube will automatically walk you through the steps to sign in or to create an account. By taking these simple steps, you will not only ensure that you continue to receive our unique programming and gain instant access to the hundreds of videos we post, but more importantly, you'll also be telling YouTube that GLC's content is worth watching and promoting. Likewise, if you enjoyed a specific program, please click the thumbs up button below, which also helps inform YouTube that this is a program worth recommending. Finally, once you have logged in and subscribed, please click the notification bell below in order to receive announcements when we post new content. As usual, feel free to post your questions and comments in the comments section below. We always love hearing from our friends and viewers. Again, thank you for watching and supporting God's Learning Channel. We couldn't spread the message of the gospel without you. Be blessed, and we hope you enjoy the show. Hey folks, when you think Jesus people, when you think rock and roll, when you think boots on the ground ministry first and foremost, what started out as an acoustic outreach of a Jesus communal house turned into one of the greatest bands of all time. It's none other than Music to Raise the Dead Resurrection Band. Glenn Kaiser, how you doing, Glenn?
Bran, I'm pleased to be with you, and I hope to live up to all that stuff.
Well, live up to it. My gosh, you and Wendy are 73, and you're still doing incredible ministry in Chicago, the Jesus people. My goodness, man, that's how you started. That's how you've always maintained. That's where you are right now. Not only just so incredible, one of the best bands in history, really, but also an example of what the bride of Christ should look like. You know, when Jesus said, I was hungry, and you gave me something to eat. I was thirsty. You gave me something to drink. And I was sick in a prison. You visited me. I was a stranger. You invited me in. I was naked. And you clothed me. Man, you're still doing all of that. Even right before we started recording, you know, talking about caring for seniors. How many seniors are you caring for in your ministry there?
Well, Friendly Towers seniors program is on the top 3 floors of our main building. It's a 10-story.
Wow.
Had been a hotel, pretty famous hotel in Chicago for many years. And we have between 90 and 100 at any given time low-income seniors who live here. So, yeah, that's and about 3 blocks away, Cornerstone Community Outreach, which is a very large, several hundred person shelter with full wraparound programs. You know, for single moms, intact families. I guess we're one of the few shelters in Chicago that actually take entire families plus their children, teenage or otherwise. And a lot of the shelters separate parents from the teenage kids. They, you know, whatever, they have their issues. And so we're involved in all sorts of things. We have a Citizen Skate, which is a full rockin' skateboard shop on the first floor, that right here on Wilson Avenue. Across the street, we have Everybody's Coffee, which, you know, incredible fair trade coffee and breakfast and lunch and all sorts of stuff. I was over there yesterday. And then Gurr Records, which, you know, Res Band, the Glenn Kaiser Band, was 3-piece blues rock. My core was blues, you know, back in the day, and soul and R&B. That's where I came from. And so I've morphed right back into that. And that's not all I do, but I largely do blues. So anyway, a lot of things going on, and we do. I mean, I'm just scratching the surface. We have
amazing.
Well, we started years ago, right in the end of '72, or actually the beginning of 1972, and traveled for a time, res band with a big old bus and a road crew, and we had probably a total of 28 of us. bopping around the country, doing concerts, setting up wherever we could play, and people booked us different places, and it kind of just went on from there.
Wow. Absolutely amazing. Yeah, I thought you're still going because I'm still taken aback. I mean, you started as a boots on the ground ministry, and that led to Res Band, but you never let go of that. How many of you remember reading Cornerstone magazine?
Yes.
And Glenn, you wrote for them for a while. I do remember reading about Resurrection Band in Cornerstone magazine. Oh my gosh, and then of course your incredible albums. Uh, Man, I mean, music alone making history, and who can forget the songs? Colors, City Streets, Broken Promises, Autograph, your first live album, Bootleg. People still remember that. How many millions of you out there were inspired by Resurrection Band?
Well,
And yeah,
the encouraging thing, Brent, is that, and I really, I'm a little, how do I say? I'm a little concerned about saying this sort of stuff, what I'm about to say, because a lot of people have worked just as hard or harder in serving people and reaching out and caring for the poor, the hungry, so on, and and even bands and solo artists and trios, whatever. People going out doing what they do for years,
right.
and they don't get the response visible where we can actually we've seen it right through the years, and we continue to see it, and I mean it's a rare day, honestly, where I don't receive something via social media or email or a text message or a letter. People are still going, "Hey, man, the soundtrack of my life." And
Yeah,
when my parents got a divorce, we did an album, as you know, "Mommy Don't Love Dad Anymore,"
yeah,
which was really referring to what I went through with my parents' divorce. And as a kid, I was 9 years old, and you see all these changes, and they don't get the response we get. They don't get the regular. And about once a week or so, somebody says, "I'm in wherever, somewhere in Africa," or they say, I can't tell you where I am, and this is just between you and me, direct messaging or whatever. But, I'm on the mission field as a result of y'all's lives. And it's, I feel bad because so many people work just as hard
mm,
and pour their lives out and get almost no direct response or visible, fruit, the acclaim. They don't see the album sales. They don't see the
mm.
people showing up at the gigs. They don't see sometimes it's pretty odd for us. It's pretty normal 2 to 3 generations
Wow.
show up when I do a solo gig. When GKB does a blues rock set, I'm jamming with people. I record on different projects. Maybe they ask me to come play live somewhere. You see all these people showing up, and they bring up all the old records and Res Band did 16 uh, albums, and between Res and my solo stuff and GKB, I'm approaching 37 of them, and so the response
Wow.
is is overwhelming to me. I'm just a guy. I put my shirt on like everybody else in the morning.
But God has blessed you though, and he knew that you were hungry enough. He knew that you were up to the task, you know? And all he wants is a willing heart. Folks, we can do incredible things for the kingdom if we yield ourselves like a grunt in the mud. Hey, here's my life. Take me. Whatever you want, God, I'll do. And when your heart is that way, and you stop wanting the things the world wants, God didn't have me do international television till I didn't want it anymore. And then when I
Well,
wanted it, I wanted to lift others up, to promote others, to give others a voice. And Glenn, I'm really happy to see your success and to see your humility in this because, folks, God just wants to use you, and He will do things you've never dreamed of before through you if you yield yourself and you want Him more than anything. You want to seek His kingdom more than anything. Look what happens. I was telling Glenn, before we started recording, I was excited about interviewing Ted Nugent. I was excited about interviewing Leonard Skinner and people like that. But I haven't been as excited as I was this morning to interview Glenn because he's a ministry first guy. He's a Jesus in you as you first guy. He and Wendy are still ministering to those that it's not as sexy as the big screen fog machine skinny jean thing that we've seen that hopefully we're seeing a return back to the Jesus people movement. But you've never stopped and you're still going strong. I do appreciate your humility. You know what though? I also want to help relieve some of your pain because I also want to give those people, those unsung heroes out there, exposure and a voice too. Those who are serving our Lord. No greater call. But as you say, Glenn, people continue to remind you and Wendy the impact that you had in their lives and ministries, and what a reward already.
Well,
My
Brent,
go ahead.
this morning I wrote a blog. I write a lot of blogs up in Wix, and that's my main site really. And then I'm in Facebook and Instagram, and I put audio podcasts up in blah 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 in 2 different places, and da 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 da. But I wrote one this morning on relevance, and that a lot of your people that watch and listen to this are going to feel irrelevant. When is love irrelevant? When is kindness and compassion and grace, extending mercy and compassion to people, irrelevant? So people might feel, and that's what I was talking about in the blog, kind of sussed it out, worthless, useless. But Jesus didn't die on the cross for people who are worthless or useless.
Right.
It's out of compassion and love. And look, I was an addict for probably the last 6 years prior to me turning 18. Any drug, any drink, any sex, any way, anything, anytime, right now, tomorrow, and tonight that I could do. And I got to a point where I realized I'm an addict. I can't change. And when I wanted to stop, when I wanted to break it off, I couldn't do it.
Wow.
And it's a long story, but when the Lord showed up in my life, it was a matter of literally swim and get to the shore or drown. It's over. We're here right now, right there.
Right.
The only thing I never did was shoot heroin, and I was right on the edge of shooting smack when I came to the Lord. And Jesus made himself so real to me. And Wendy and I both came out of pretty messed up families, and it struggled. She had a godly mother, but she had a train wreck and a pastor of a father who was continually hitting up the women, caught up in his own addictions in other areas. And look, the punchline here is Brent, it's a little easier in one sense to see what's going on around you when you're dealing with really broken, hurting, poor folks. You realize a lot of them, it's biological mental illness combined with spiritual sickness, illness. They're not born again. They've never been spiritually born. They don't know Jesus. They don't know God the Father in a genuine way. So the struggles, what do? You try to fill that hole with whatever it is. And for me, it was dope, sex, booze, music, getting high every way, anyway, right now, as much as I could. But when I realized it was killing me, and I was the evangelist for Satan, man. I was the dude out there. I was the example to go to hell. That was the example I said. Well, no, I mean, that was it. I was working for somebody else, right? And when I finally, the lights came on, literally, the light of the world showed up, and he made himself plain. And I'm looking at the scriptures and what the Bible says. Matthew 25, which you've already quoted, that's massive in my life. It's haunting. Yeah. It should for everybody, anybody. As you've done it to the least of these, that's how you treat me. What does he say? He said, that's going to come up at the very end in the judgment. Right. Oh man, food, water, clothing, housing, healthcare, and in prison. So a lot of what I do these days, I go into Cook County Jail regularly in 2 different ways. I'm leading worship, I speak, but I also am doing music classes to try to bridge the gap and help people to understand. And I'm doing music classes in a very different way than you'd expect. I'm teaching them how I was taught and how I learned. And I'm trying to encourage, you have worth, you have value, to continue to go back out, hit the wall, fall back into the same addictions, round and round and round, from jail and then downstate for 10, 20 years, or maybe life, depending on what happens, what you do, or what you end up, the people you hang out with. I'm telling you, in bands back in the day, from the time I was 13 to 18, it was the same. How I got involved in a lot of the mess was with people 4, 5, 6 years older than me, and I bought into the same addictions that they did. And so getting set free from all that and making those changes, well, there's a cost. But baby, there's a cost if you don't surrender to
Oh yeah.
Jesus.
And you know what? That's where you find your life. You're singing my song,
Boom,
bro. You're speaking my.
boom, boom,
Well,
boom. You lose your life. You lose your life for my sake and the sake of the gospel. You'll find it.
exactly.
You try to hang on and hold your life. You try to manufacture your own. You write your own script, baby. That's a movie with a bad ending. That's a mess. It's a mess on the way eventually, because
Wow.
you're going to reap what you sow. You're going to reap what you sow. I mean, come on. It doesn't matter whether you believe in anything. That's going to happen, and you're going
Oh
to
yeah.
find it.
Universal law, man.
So,
Yeah.
so the love of God and being a conduit for His mercy, for His compassion, is one old, I don't know whoever said it. I don't think I've ever found the source, but we're like beggars showing other beggars where to find bread.
That's an old Indian, like in India, Christian metaphor there. And
Yes, it is.
it was 1998. I was standing. I had my first big worship ministry and big multi-million-dollar ministry, and I'm standing there and I'm thinking, man, my dad, when he came to Jesus such a radical way, was an evangelist. Even before he came, he was saved and he was involved in the crime world, would take us down to what we called Card Box City, where people lived
Yep.
in boxes, and would give them, even as a bad guy, he was a good guy with a good heart, but he just got caught in the wrong thing, but would even feed them then. But fast forward to 98, and I'm like, you know what? I want to reach the homeless. I want to reach the street people. I want to reach the people that I identify with as well, the rough and tumble, and so I put on the system Keith Green's The Sheep and the Goats.
There you go.
And I cried and just broke down. And then I created something called Radical Authentic Worship, the Christian Saturday Night Live. And we brought in the street people, and that church wanted to crucify me for acting like Jesus. And I got the bug, and I walked away from that scene vocationally, because the action is on the street where the people are. Jesus in us as he is, so we are in the world. And I got to tell you, of all the amazing things we've got to do, playing the homeless shelter, playing the prisons, that's where I'll never forget this executive. I can't go with you and play for the homeless shelter, Brant. We did something called Rock the Mission downtown at the homeless shelter. I said, I said, why not? He said, I don't have any joy. I said, come with me. That's where the joy comes from. Man, it changed his life, because anybody can be homeless. Anybody is 1 or 2 months away,
I
and
love.
to open your
I've done.
eyes and be like Jesus. Don't you love that?
I totally do, and I totally relate. Well, this is where, the last thing I ever wanted to be was locked behind bars. And a couple of times, well, I got called in and lied to him. And I came to Jesus 2 weeks later. I bumped into the same as the chief of detectives in the largest suburb of Milwaukee. And I walked up to him in my high school. It was like a couple hours before the end of the day. And I happened to walk from one place to another. And he's out there in the hall. I walk up and say, sir, I need to apologize. And he said, what? And I said, I need to apologize, man. Kaiser, right? I said, yes, sir. You had me down to the station 2 weeks ago. I said, look, I've become a Christian, and I've been reading. The Bible says, "Oh no man, nothing except to love him," and everybody speak truth to their neighbor. And so I just need to ask your forgiveness. And he looked at me like I had three heads. And I said, well, all the questions you asked me. He listed every drug anybody ever took, right? And I kept saying, no, no, no. I was high that morning. I was high sitting. He had the sun shining in my eyes. I'm sure dilated, right? And I'm sitting there, lying. I said, I lied to you. I'm sorry.
Wow.
I did all that except one. And so anyway, it's a long story, but I ended up. He said, do you mind coming down? I said, if the vice principal lets me out. So he did. I go down there. He goes down the list. Yes, yes, yes. At the end of it all, I just said, he said names. I said, me and about three people I know in high school are selling nickel bags of marijuana and a little bit of hash. We don't even know who the big boys are. I've never met them, don't know their names, never seen them. You know who they are. They need Jesus. I'm clean and sober right now, and I plan to stay that way because of what God is doing in my life. He looked at me. He walked out the door, came back, said, "Would you tell this to the chief of police?" I
Wow.
said, "Sure." I end up, I go through it. At the end of the thing, they look at each other. The chief gets, I don't know if he was a believer, I don't know what, but I told him why I wasn't going to give him any names. I said, you could bust them anytime you want. I'm people, kids that I know, they simply need the Lord. I mean,
Yeah.
that's really what it comes to. The guy gets up, shakes my hand, and the chief of detectives takes me back to my high school, and the bell rings, and I go home. I mean, it was just, whoa. And then I remembered, you don't have to prepare what you're going to say before great people. I'll give you the words to speak. And for me, from day one, I understood that it really is more blessed to give than receive.
Yeah.
Being honest, trying to deal openly with your own sins and temptations and issues. Don't play church. Be the church. Be the church. And by the way, I happen to be an ordained pastor in the Evangelical Covenant denomination. So, whatever. Well,
All right.
but I've
Me
known so
too.
many. Look, I've known people. I've known pastors, worship leaders,
Yeah.
which I've done most of my Christian life now, who didn't walk with the Lord, who had
No.
horrible relationships with their wife, their kids, or their husband, with God Himself. So it's just we play the role or we live it, and we live the life, and we're in connection with God and others. And I just think sometimes people are so self-focused, and it's all about me, what I call the unholy trinity, me, myself, and I. And you're finally just chasing your own tail, and you wonder why nothing ever changes,
Right.
or if anything, it starts to spiral further and further down. And wake up, smell the coffee, baby. I had a couple cups this morning. I'm going to have another one pretty soon.
I need to as well. Well, I love that about you, Glenn, because of these people that I get to interview, including you. Um, a lot of these big former stars or stars, it seems like they're all coming around to Jesus because they climbed the top of the mountain of what you need to be happy, and there's nothing there. It's all one big lie. It's all a facade. Only Jesus makes sense. Only He fulfills. There's nobody like Him. He is alive. He is history. He is coming back, and
100%.
He's calling His people. And I was compelled 8 years ago to start interviewing Jesus people because America needs and the world needs the Jesus people back. And we also need a new generation. And I'm seeing that with the young. This weekend, I'm about to hop in the car after our interview and go put on knight armor and give kids the code of knighthood, live pure, speak truth, right, wrong, follow the king. I told God for 20 years I was too old to do that. And
Sure.
no one else is doing it. And he wouldn't let me off the hook. So when my son, who came back into my life, heard about it, he's on fire to do it. So he's helping me. But, when you live a life of contribution and you understand
Boom.
that good or bad, happy or sad, righteous or evil, you will reap what you've sown. Isn't it wonderful that you gain life by giving life? And Jesus' agenda. You can go to the Holy Land and tour and see all the places. He spoke famously, except for one. It's in ruins, and that's the place He gave His agenda to preach the good news to the poor, to set the captive free, to
Where did I
loose the
read that?
chains, to bind the brokenhearted.
Where did I read that? Who said that?
Jesus.
Absolutely.
And
Well,
that's what it's all about, man.
I've been in prisons all over the world, and I get to go home after the gig, after I share whatever it is I do, speak. Usually it's music, and all over Illinois. I'm accredited in the state and at Cook County Jail here in Chicago. And what you're just saying, look, the word contribute. People feel like they don't have anything to offer.
Oh, they do.
That's not true. That's not true. And look, when the Lord is in your life, especially, man, wake up, pray, think about it. What spiritual gifts may God give you by the Spirit, by the Holy Spirit? What talents, natural talents, abilities? you've got stuff where you can serve others. Let love, Paul writes, right, to the church. He says, let love make you, move you, compel you to serve one another. And I'm constantly finding myself saying, guys, what if you get sent downstate for 25 years?
Yeah.
What if you end up downstate here in Illinois or in Ohio or wherever I go, Alaska, I've been everywhere. What happens then? And maybe there's a worship team that you can get involved with. The first thing I'd do if I were you, I'd find the chaplain. I'd find the chief chaplain and have a sit down and spill it out. And you're going to find people that are professionals who don't follow Jesus, who really don't love God. It's just a gig, right? Among the chaplaincy. That's reality in a lot of places.
Yeah.
But there are so many real people and genuine, and you're going to find one or two other brothers, maybe your celly or maybe somebody else in your pod. Link up and start praying, what can I do? I don't mean being rude, nasty, obnoxious, chip on shoulder, pride, major arrogance. That's what I'm talking about. But when is love and kindness and compassion irrelevant? Figure out how you can serve. And music and learning an instrument, learning to sing, percussion. And so I go through all that stuff in the music class that I'm teaching at Cook County Jail. And it's just, the lights start coming on. I'm like, man, you get out of here. You end up getting released, and which may not happen. But if you end up getting released, or at one point when you've served downstate and you're done, what are you going to do? Who are you going to pick to hang out with? What are you willing to sacrifice so that perhaps you can do something involved in music or a music related area and start paying forward and reach out to folks that are hurting? It is literally therapeutic to us to do music. It literally can bring peace and healing and grace. Or you can listen to music and create music that does nothing but tear down. And I mean, look, the book of Psalms, one third, close to one third of the hymnal of Israel are Psalms of lament. When I've played many times at Sturgis, down at Daytona Bike Week, biker shows, rallies all over the place, here, overseas, whatever, in touring, man, I see it in their eyes. We have conversations. I chat with folks between sets and stuff. And even the pain that is mentioned, and it's mentioned throughout Psalms, book of Psalms, in the worship songs. It's not all up Yahoo stuff. There's an understanding that God meets us right there, that the mercies of the Lord are new every morning, and that his faithfulness is great, just like it says in Ecclesiastes, right? And so you might be involved in writing some songs, or maybe you're at sound tech. You learn how to do a stage monitor for somebody, whatever. And there are truly born again, following Jesus, rappers, rockers, blues players, all over the map, every style of music. So being open and recognizing, hey, God may have something beyond for you, maybe a side hustle. Who knows? Maybe it'll be your main gig. It's a lot better than knocking over people for their purse or getting involved in yet another dope deal when the 9 mils come. I was involved in one of those one time, small-time dealer back in the day, man, before I knew Jesus. And you all of a sudden, it's like, what are we doing? What am I doing? What's the point? And then round and round in lockup. Oh, it's such a mess. It's such a mess. So that's my message continually behind bars. And like I say, I get to go home every night. It's pretty incredible. These poor guys and women end up sitting there, and some of them sit there for life. It's like, and the Christians, unfortunately, and I'm not saying everybody's called to do what I do. I don't believe everybody is. Right. I really don't. But so many Christians, out of sight, out of mind.
Yeah.
They just, they're numb to really hurting people. And so that's where I want to go. That's where Jesus is. I see God in his grace all the time in these situations and among these folks.
And that's where the reward is. Jesus ignited the greatness in people. He saw the potential in people. He knew that people are priceless.
He leaves the 99
and
he goes after the one. How's that for math? I mean,
well,
Jesus turns our sense of success on its head. I was that one once. Yeah. I was that one. I was your worst nightmare. I tell people all the time, whenever I'm in a church any kind of a church, traditional, more traditional, especially, say, know this: I was your as a kid, as a teenager or young, until I came to know the Lord, man. I was your worst nightmare. I was the guy TP in your house at Halloween, man. I was the guy you wouldn't want to take your daughter out.